right now. And we're live in 3, 2, and welcome everybody. Ta-ta-la-da. It's a new episode of Planet Mullins podcast. We're in season 2 now. It's going by quick. This is, I think, my 32nd episode, and my guest today is a very accomplished, fantastic musician, and he's a scientist too. Please say hello to Mr. Samir Bodhi, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey Rob, good to see you. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's good. I'm happy to see your smiling face. All of what we've done so far is just talk on the telephone and emails, but I like the hat and the room and everything. You're looking good, man.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, all right, so let's get right down to business. You have a brand new album. It's called Stairway to Nirvana, and I have a wide range of ages of people that watch my show. So for the people that are the younger ones, they only know that Nirvana was a rock band from the 90s. Then maybe you can explain.
All right.
Yeah.
So the idea behind the album was conceived around 2019, well before the pandemic.
Okay.
And what I was going through personally at that time is a couple of things. One, not being too political, but the last administration was creating scenarios where, me being an immigrant and immigrants were not being treated well. And I was like, that's not fair. That's not good, right? We work hard. And at the same time, there was a lot of uncertainty and there was a lack of peace throughout the world that I was witnessing. And of course, at that time, I had absolutely no idea that we would be entering a pandemic in 2020.
Wow, right, sure. Go ahead.
So I wanted to create a new age album with music and tracks that would bring peace and harmony and calmness, meditation, mindfulness. That was the main idea. So I started talking to some of my musician friends back in India. The idea was to keep the essence of Indian classical music,
Okay.
but arrange it in a much more westernized fashion.
Got it.
So I started telling them about my ideas and my concepts, and we got to write some of the tracks. And then, of course, we recorded in 2020 of January.
Okay.
The mixing happened, and then in March, everything shut down, pandemic
Right.
happened. So the mixing and all that was done during the lockdown.
Okay.
But the album name also, I had it very much in the early stages. I wanted to call it Stairway to Nirvana, which is like, I was viewing it as, one has to take these small steps until you reach that enlightenment.
Okay.
And the enlightenment, of course, is that empathy is important, caring for others is important, and all across global peace. So Stairway to Nirvana is just an attempt to do that. It's my debut new age album.
Okay.
Prior to this, of course, I have been doing a lot of Bollywood pop music compositions.
Wow.
My wife is a well-known Bollywood singer, so I've done a lot of music compositions for her. But the New Age album, the New Age reason why I went New Age is that, I found myself comfortable in bringing the meditative feeling into the music. And
Okay.
I wanted to also work with Indian ragas. So it was a blend of both of those things.
Great.
I'm a very big fan of jazz music. I love jazz music. So one of the tracks, actually, if you have listened, Harmony, you'll get a feel of jazz in that. But the other ones, of course, I would say it's much more peaceful.
Tell people what a raga is, because I know some people know what that is and other people don't have any idea. What is a raga?
Right. So in Indian classical music, it is composed of 12 notes. 7 perfect notes, and then you have the minors and the flats and sharps.
Okay.
Now, there are structures in which you can use a certain combination of notes in the ascending and the descending pattern, and that is called a raga. So basically, the ragas were probably designed in the 700 or 800 AD, long time back.
Wow.
And there is a associated time. So there are morning ragas, there are late night ragas, evening ragas. And when you sing those ragas during those times, there's an ambience that gets created. And every raga is unique. Every raga has its own ascending and descending pattern. And so I use quite a bit of that in some of the compositions here.
That's really cool, man. had the good fortune to travel to India to play with a flute player named Hubert Laws, and we spent a week in Bangalore. I know you recorded up in Mumbai, right?
Right, in Calcutta and in Mumbai, both places. Yeah.
Yeah. So I also should tell you that my favorite restaurant in all of Los Angeles is called Akbar Indian Restaurant.
I'm familiar with that.
We have to go eat there if you're ever on the West Side, man.
Sure, sure.
We have to go eat
There are some other good ones too that I'll take you to.
Okay.
Yeah, there are some really good ones too. Yeah.
Yeah, you probably
you mentioned flute. I'm happy to say that the flute in my album was played by Rakesh Chaurasia, who undoubtedly is the #1 flute player in India right now.
Wow.
He's just fabulous musician.
So run down the instrumentation, the basic instrumentation. Like what instrument do you play on the album?
Okay, so I usually play two instruments. I play the guitar, which is my first instrument, and I also play the keyboard.
Okay.
In the album, we have used a number of ethnic instruments, starting with the sarod, which most people are familiar with the sitar, which has a slightly high-pitched shrill sound. The sarod is a string instrument that has a deeper sound. It's much more, lower note kind of sound.
Okay.
And I really love the sarod. The person who made sarod famous is Ali Akbar Khan, and you may have heard about him. He has a big school. He had a big school in Northern California.
Yeah.
He passed away a few years back. So sarod is there, and then of course a lot of guitar. There is a lot of percussion instruments, including tabla and khol. A khol is a very big round kind of drum. It has a very unique sound. And then one other string instrument we have used is the sarangi, which is a string instrument that is very difficult to play actually, and sarangi, the word sarangi means 100 sounds. So, and when you listen to it from a distance, it almost feels like a woman is crying. It has that kind of tonality.
Okay.
There is, of course, the flute that Rakesh has played. We have used a little bit of keyboards here and there, but mainly every track is live recording with live musicians, everybody in the studio. So it was a phenomenal experience to be with them for 3 full days in the studio.
Wow.
We did the 5 tracks. Yeah.
Wow. So this thing, Stairway to Nirvana, is, I guess it would fall into the category of a EP or extended play or something like that.
It is an EP. Yeah, the total we have 5 tracks. The total duration is about 25 minutes, so it would be an EP. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, people, go out there and pick up your copy of Stairway to Nirvana, because if you can find Nirvana in 25 minutes, you're going to be ahead of almost everyone.
Well, I was lucky to get some awesome reviews, and some of the reviewers did say that after listening to the album, they felt like that. So I was happy.
That's great.
And of course, as you mentioned, I'll tell all your listeners that the hard copy, of course, can be obtained from Amazon.
Okay.
But these days, not too many people buy albums; they download and stream.
Right.
But I still would recommend, if you are a fan of new age music, buy the CD, because it's a 6-pack digipack. We have lots of good inlay artwork.
Ooh, nice.
I think I miss those things these days when we go streaming digital. But of course, it's available in Spotify, iTunes, Apple, Amazon, everywhere. Yeah.
Well, I just recently, about 2 weeks ago, put out my latest album, and I definitely made CDs because I feel exactly like you do. I love having you can open it, you've got the shrink wrap, you can look on the inside and see the people, and you get the pictures. I'm not really a fan of some of these modern world things, especially the transition of, the streaming services all push singles all the time and they never push albums anymore.
Correct.
Yeah, so that really bothers me because I've done a lot of music. So I'll go on Spotify, and on Spotify, it'll have one of my jazz fusion songs, and it'll be followed by like a new age piano piece, and then it'll be some rock and roll that I did. I could see people could get really confused. So I'm always having to say I do it the way Samir does it. I do a whole album as a concept.
Yeah, I mean, the tracks are sequential. There's a reasoning behind it, and
Mm-hmm.
everything is linked, so you get the whole feel. And honestly, as you mentioned, going back when I was young and I was being born and raised in India, back in the 70s, 80s, it wasn't that easy to even get hold of albums. But when we did get one, for example, I had Pink Floyd's album, Wall and Dark Side of the Moon and some of
Uh-huh.
the Beatles album. I remember like I would pour myself into the album artwork and look at the pictures, read the inliner notes and everything. And it was a complete different experience that I think the kids these days probably are not getting it from Spotify.
No, I agree with you there. I mean, I see from time to time these little spurts like vinyl is selling again and CDs are selling again. But it's I think that during the times that you and I were growing up, it was kind of a golden age of music and recording because there weren't so many artists. Like now, there's just way too many artists.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm not saying that that's necessarily terrible, but people are flooded with so much material coming at them all the time that I think it's easier for them to just kind of say, oh, well, music is just background for me taking my selfies now. And I don't really, sit and listen. Like what I used to do is I would take the album, I'd read everything, and then I would lay down and turn out the lights, and I would listen to the whole album.
Yeah.
And that would be, as a teenager, that would be what I would do for an evening. And I thought it was great. And now it's just kind of with the technology and all that, it's just not the same at all.
Yeah, and I think, most people are listening to music on their smartphones, which probably isn't the best output anyway. Talking about recording, though, I do want to mention that Stairway to Nirvana, was mixed by a person in Mumbai called Vishwadip Chatterjee, who is a national award winner. He's received numerous awards for his mixing work. He does mainly for films,
Okay.
but he also sometimes does individual albums. So I was very, very fortunate and lucky to get him on board, and he readily agreed to do this mixing for us. And when you listen to the tracks, you can see that the mixing is really, really well done.
Yeah, the sonic quality of the album is really great. So, real quickly, I want to just kind of go through some of the milestones in your life, like important things that happened, maybe when you left India for the first time and came to America, or how you balance all this amazing scientific stuff you do. That's insane. Though you can talk about any of that stuff you want. Go right ahead.
Yeah, so very quick snapshot. Growing up in India, I started learning the guitar, and I was learning under a person who was very well connected with the studios. So even when I was in 9th or 10th grade, he would take me around to the studios. I would do some recording stuff. So I got into recording at that age.
Nice.
But parallelly, I was very good in studies. I was a very bright student. And there was a moment in my life when I finished high school, there was a choice, which is I got admission into one of the top engineering institutes.
Okay.
And my parents, especially my mom, definitely wanted me to be an engineer. But at the same time, there were pressures from a lot of well-known singers who were approaching me to play in their band.
Wow.
So I did not choose to become a professional musician right away then. So I decided, okay, let me do my studies, and got into engineering. But when I went to engineering college, I formed my first band.
Okay.
And believe it or not, it was a Western band. So we used to do Western songs.
Wow.
So very big fan of, Eagles and Pink Floyd, and we used to do Elvis numbers. And back then, very big hits were Lionel Richie. So we used to do those songs. And so college was all about, playing guitar and playing the Western stuff. And then, again, my coming to America was accidental. Wasn't really planning for it, but I took the GRE, got a good score, and I applied to a few schools, got a scholarship. So I said, hey, I'll come to America, get a master's degree, and come back. But that never happened.
Oh.
So as they say, you fall into the N+2 syndrome, where after 10 years in the US, you would say 2 more years and then I'll go back. And that never happened. So now it's 32 years. The other thing is that while in college, of course, I met my wife, and she is a full-time singer and now a music teacher performer.
Okay.
And we started doing a lot of shows in America even when I was in graduate school. So
Wow.
we used to perform in college festivals, and people would invite us to their homes and so on. So we used to do mainly Indian songs, Bollywood and ghazals. But one major turning point that happened was there was a very famous ghazal singer from Bollywood and Mumbai called Jagjit Singh. And if you Google him, you'll find him. He is like a phenomenal singer. And he was touring when his band had already left, and he was in Florida for a week's holiday. And he was staying at a person's house who knew me. And suddenly in Orlando, there was a concert arranged within a few days' notice. And that person called me and said, Samir, you have to play the guitar with Jagjit Singh. I said, are you kidding me? I mean, I might know 5 of his songs, but a concert is like 25 songs, right? But I went to his home, I met Jagjit Singh, and I'm a huge fan of this person, and I'm a 22-year-old. And he was very encouraging, and I think that was my best concert ever. And it was 2,000 people audience, completely packed. It was Jagjit Singh on the harmonium, which is like a accordion music, and I was on the guitar, and there was a tabla player. No one else, just 3 musicians. Okay. And 2.5-hour concert, sold out. It was beautiful. And after that, he told me that, Samir, music is in your blood. You should never leave it. So it was an inspirational moment coming from such a big star, who could fill an auditorium of 2,000 capacity in 3 days. You can imagine the pull he had. And he told the same thing to my wife. He said, you have a beautiful voice. You guys should do music more. So from that day onwards, we decided, okay, you're going to do this much more seriously. And I'm talking about 1990 now, right? And since then, we started doing stuff. And after that, I've been composing, and we have published 5 albums for my wife, various genres, but mainly Indian. Okay. And one other thing that I would say that led to my attempt to do New Age is this. So a lot of our friends, people who have heard my wife, they would say, you sing so beautifully. Why don't you go and do film music in Mumbai, right? Which is the Bollywood film music, right? And it's not independent music. It's film music is very big in India. Mm-hmm. So we went and we spent some days in Mumbai, and we were in a studio. There was a director who came and he heard one of the songs we were recording, and he made a comment which was very interesting. He said, you have a fabulous voice, but the issue is that you are not here. You are in Los Angeles. And the way it works is that, our films are within like 24 hours, I may need a song to be done, and I will not be able to find you. Right. So that thing kind of stuck in me, like, okay, we are not there. So then I started thinking, where are we? We are in Los Angeles. So I started thinking, how can I then cross over and reach the wider Western audience with some of the Indian background that I have? Okay. And that's eventually led to my debut New Age album, Stairway To Nirvana, where this is something everybody here would listen to. But the Bollywood music, of course, some people listen to, but because it is language based, a lot of people may not be able to follow. So that's how I ventured into this.
Wow, that's amazing, man. Well, I as a music teacher here in America too, I have had some students that come from India, and some from China, and some from Korea, Japan, and Germany, and things like that. But there has always been, for many years here among young people, like college age people, they love Bollywood. Mm-hmm. And even if they don't understand what it is, like, they're completely attracted to, I think their first attraction to it, since young people are so video oriented, is just the videos are insane.
Insane. I mean,
they're insane. Where do they
spend? They spend so much money. I mean, many of the Bollywood movies would have song and dance. There would be 5 or 8 songs, right? Right. Each of those songs are so very well choreographed. There is massive sets. There is so much of dress and costume. It's an extravagant thing, and that's why it's so big. It's visually very rich and appealing.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, I remember when I first saw my first Bollywood stuff, I was like, wow, there's like 800 people on a mountaintop, and then there's like one guy with 1,000 goats or something on the other mountaintop, and they're all coming into the valley, and it sounds great, and it's like the EDM beats or something. It's the wildest stuff ever, man.
It is, yeah.
It's crazy. Well, let's touch a little bit on some of your scientific things, because now that you've explained it, your connection between music and your intellectual pursuits, I understand the album a lot better. But I want to go to one particular line in your bio and just see if you can help me understand this because it's crazy. It says Samir's array of achievements in academia include being professor and Fletcher Jones Chair of Design, Technology, and Management at CGU's Center for Informational Systems and Technology, and serving as adjunct professor of design and innovation at the USC Jimmy Iovine and Andre Young Academy for the Arts. And now I want to pass out because I didn't have enough air to even say all that.
Because right, so I will break it up for you. First of all, I have a PhD in computer science, and my research really is very much in healthcare, IT, or health innovations. Okay. So I design technologies that include sensors and mobile applications and ambience and all that. But our context is coming from the healthcare. So we are working with heart failure patients, diabetes patients, and so on. Mm-hmm. So in that milieu, what I also do is I have been fortunate enough to develop a methodology called design science, which in our information systems academic community is now a well-known research method. Okay. And it kind of draws from design thinking, where you start with the problem and you understand the problem very well. And then you go through a lot of brainstorming and iterations to come up with some viable solution. And then you evaluate the solution to see whether you have solved the problem and whether it's an efficient solution or not, right? Okay. So this is a methodology that you can apply to problems from healthcare, problems from environment, problems in society. And so I have a lab in Claremont where I work with a lot of PhD students, and they're working on numerous different kinds of problems. We are, of course, doing a lot of AI and machine learning these days.
Wow, cool.
The data, you can do predictive modeling. You can predict somebody will have a heart attack. Those are the kind of problems we're working on. And what I think design thinking, the way I go about doing my research and solving these problems, in some way has also found itself into my music creation. So I do think about, like, I try to envision the place where this instrument might be played, and try to kind of draw the empathy of understanding how a musician would play this. So when you hear in the tracks the khol, which is the drum that is being played in the Nirvana track, which is the last track in the album, it emanates rural Bengal, which is the state from where I come from in India. Wow. And if you go to those rural villages, you will hear that sound being played by people, So I kind of do some of that also. So of course, yeah. And then you mentioned the USC. So last 3.5 years, I have been an adjunct in a very interesting new entrepreneurship and design and innovation school, which actually has been funded by two music moguls. It is Jimmy Iovine, of course, you know who he is. And Andre Young is none other than Dr. Dre. Okay. So when they made the Beats speaker that was acquired by Apple, they actually said that they were trying to recruit people who understood engineering and music and didn't find, because two groups of people were speaking two different languages. Right. So they funded this school at USC so that people would understand the art and musical requirements and yet would understand technology and would have a good sense of business innovation.
How cool.
So this is an undergrad program. Yeah. And I was hired by the dean to help them launch their health innovation programs. So that's what I was doing, yeah. And I was lucky enough to meet both Jimmy Iovine and Andre Young and Dr. Dre a couple of times. Jimmy always speaks. Dr. Dre never speaks. He's a very quiet person.
He probably doesn't have to say anything because he's so busy counting all that money.
Probably, both of them are.
I mean, those guys made a lot of money. I taught college briefly out in Fullerton, and one of the things that was a gift to the school is that Beats had given a whole bunch of sets of those headphones to the college. And, predictably, I found the bass, the bottom end, there was too much bass in there. And I favor a different kind of headphones. But the thing that was impressive is they just looked amazing. Like the design of them was really spectacular.
And that's where the school is focused on, design, something that has a appeal to the customer, and then at the same time there is utility, there's ease of convenience. So the students are learning a lot of different techniques and skills and tools that they use to design things, and that's why I was lucky enough to be involved in the very early stages of the school. It's now 6 years, I think.
Okay.
And it's continuing on, so it's pretty good. Yeah.
Well, being a guy that grew up in Ontario, California, not far from you, I would like an AI app that would tell me how long is the line at the nearest In-N-Out burger. That's the first thing that I would like for you guys to work on. If you ever work on something, just find me an In-N-Out where it's not going to take me 2 hours.
That's a great problem to solve, and I think it can be done. I'm not sure why they haven't done it. The In-N-Out should have an app of their own.
They should have something that's going to fix that. So, well, anyway, man, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. You're a very interesting guest, and if people wanted to contact you now, I know your website is samirbodhi.com. And you're also on Facebook. And where else can people reach you? What's the best way to reach you?
I'm also in Twitter. It's at Samir Bodhi.
Okay.
And I'm also on where else? I'm on LinkedIn, but that's under my professional name, which is Samir Chatterjee.
Okay.
But you can look me up on Facebook.
Nice.
Yeah, and my website.
Yeah, that's so perfect, man. Well, it's an honor and a pleasure, sir. I love the album. I hope it just does really well for you, and looking forward to chatting with you again soon.
Thank you, Rob. This was a pleasure, and I hope to meet you soon one of these days, and we'll eat at that Akbar restaurant or maybe another restaurant.
Well, we'll definitely eat at Akbar, and then we have to eat at Vince's Spaghetti, because I know there's one in Rancho Cucamonga by you, then the original in Ontario. So, okay, folks, that's going to be it for tonight's show. Thanks again for tuning in. My guest was Samir Bodhi. The new album is called Stairway to Nirvana. Please go online and check it out. And for all you people that are old like me, buy a CD, man. You won't regret it. Okay, that's it for now. Bye-bye, everybody.